Amy Winehouse stood in the school hallway, no microphone in her hand, but what she was about to say would make every student cry. The fluorescent lights hummed above, casting their usual institutional glow across the linoleum floors of Ashmole Academy in North London. Students moved between classes, their voices echoing off lockers, their minds on homework, friendships, the ordinary rhythm of a Tuesday afternoon. Nobody expected what was about to happen. Nobody could have imagined that in less than 5 minutes, this hallway would become the site of one of the most emotional moments in the school's history. Amy Winehouse walked through the front doors unannounced. No security team, no publicist, no cameras. Just her, in ripped jeans and a vintage leather jacket, her signature beehive slightly askew, eyeliner smudged like she'd been crying on the way over. The receptionist looked up, stunned into silence. Before anyone could react, Amy was already moving down the corridor, her boots clicking against the floor with purpose. She knew exactly where she was going. 3rd floor, East Wing. The music room where she'd spent countless hours as a teenager, learning jazz standards, arguing with teachers about the right way to sing, discovering her voice. But today, she wasn't here for nostalgia. She was here because of a letter. 3 weeks earlier, a 16-year-old student named Sarah Mitchell had written to Amy. The letter was simple, handwritten on lined notebook paper, sent to Amy's management company with little hope of a response. Sarah wrote about losing her mother to cancer, about how Amy's song, "Wake Up Alone," had been the only thing that made her feel less isolated in her grief, about how she was struggling to find meaning in continuing with school, with life, with anything. Subscribe now because what happens next will change how you see vulnerability and strength forever. The letter had arrived on a particularly dark day for Amy. She'd been battling her own demons, feeling disconnected from the world, questioning why she made music at all. Sarah's words cut through all of that. Here was a young girl, in the same school Amy had once walked through, experiencing the kind of pain that Amy knew too intimately. Amy folded the letter carefully and put it in her jacket pocket. She carried it with her for 3 weeks, reading it again and again, until finally, on this Tuesday afternoon, she decided to do something about it. When Amy reached the 3rd floor, classes were changing. Students poured into the hallway. The first person to recognize her was a Year 10 boy who dropped his textbook, his mouth falling open. Then a girl grabbed her friend's arm, pointing. Within seconds, the hallway erupted into chaos. Students pulled out phones, started filming, calling out her name. Teachers emerged from classrooms, trying to restore order but equally stunned by the presence of one of Britain's most famous singers standing in their school corridor. Amy raised her hand. "Please," she said, her voice cutting through the noise with that distinctive rasp. "I'm looking for Sarah Mitchell." The crowd parted. At the far end of the hallway, a girl with brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing the standard Navy uniform, stood frozen. Her face went pale. She looked like she might run, or faint, or both. Amy walked toward her. The hallway fell silent. You could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing, the distant sound of a lawnmower outside, someone's phone still recording. Sarah's eyes filled with tears before Amy even reached her. "You wrote to me," Amy said softly when she stood in front of Sarah. It wasn't a question. Sarah nodded, unable to speak. But here's the part no one expected, the part that changed everything. Amy didn't ask to go somewhere private. She didn't suggest they talk after school or in an office. Instead, right there in the hallway, surrounded by hundreds of students and teachers, Amy Winehouse sat down on the floor. She crossed her legs, patted the ground next to her, and looked up at Sarah. "Sit with me," she said. Sarah hesitated, then slowly lowered herself to the floor. The crowd of students instinctively moved closer, forming a circle around them, but maintaining a respectful distance. Everyone's phones were out now, but nobody was talking. The entire 3rd floor of Ashmole Academy had become a cathedral of silence. Amy reached into her jacket and pulled out Sarah's letter, now wrinkled and worn from being handled so many times. "I've read this about 100 times," Amy said, her voice thick with emotion. "And every time I read it, I think about my Nan. She died when I was young, and I thought the world had ended. I thought I'd never feel okay again." Sarah's tears spilled over, running down her cheeks. "How did you keep going?" she whispered. Amy was quiet for a long moment. Around them, students were crying too now. Teachers had their hands over their mouths. Someone had turned off the hallway lights, and the late afternoon sun coming through the windows cast everything in gold. "I'm not going to lie to you," Amy said finally. "Some days I didn't keep going. Some days I wanted to give up completely. But there was this thing my nan used to tell me. She said that grief isn't something you get over. It's something you learn to carry. And the weight never really gets lighter, but you get stronger at carrying it." She reached out and took Sarah's hand. "Your mom, she's still with you. In your voice when you sing, in your laugh, in every choice you make. You're carrying her forward. That's not a burden, that's an honor." The hallway was completely silent except for the sound of quiet crying. A girl in year 9 had her arms around her friend. A teacher in the back wiped his eyes. Even the school's notoriously stern headmaster, who had appeared to see what the commotion was about, stood still, watching. Sarah looked at Amy, this woman she'd only seen on album covers and music videos, now sitting on her school floor, holding her hand, crying with her. "I don't know how to do it," Sarah said. "I don't know how to keep carrying her." Amy Winehouse suddenly stopped speaking. The entire crowd waited. What she did next would become legendary in that school's history. Amy stood up and pulled Sarah to her feet. Then, in front of everyone, she started to sing. No backing track, no microphone, no stage. Just her voice, raw and unfiltered, singing. "Love is a losing game." A cappella in a school hallway. Her voice cracked on the first line. It wasn't perfect. It was better than perfect. It was honest. It was human. It was everything her music had always been, stripped down to its most vulnerable core. As she sang, she kept her eyes locked on Sarah, but the song was for everyone in that hallway. Every kid who'd lost someone. Every teenager feeling alone. Every person who'd ever wondered if they could survive their grief. When she reached the chorus, something extraordinary happened. Students started singing with her. Quietly at first, then louder. Teachers joined in. Within moments, the entire third floor was singing together, this impromptu choir of grief and hope and solidarity. Amy's voice soared above them all, that instrument that had made her famous, now deployed not for an arena or a recording studio, but for a 16-year-old girl who needed to know she wasn't alone. When the song ended, the silence that followed was profound. Amy pulled Sarah into a hug, and Sarah collapsed into her arms, sobbing. Amy held her, rocking her gently, whispering something that only Sarah could hear. Around them, students were embracing each other, teachers were wiping tears, everyone was feeling the weight and the beauty of this moment. Comment below if you've ever experienced a moment where someone's kindness changed everything, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. After several minutes, Amy gently released Sarah. She reached into her other pocket and pulled out something small, wrapped in tissue paper. "This was my nan's," she said, pressing it into Sarah's hand. "She gave it to me before she died. It's a St. Christopher medal. Patron saint of travelers. Your mom's on a journey now, and so are you. Keep this, and remember that you're never traveling alone." Sarah unwrapped the tissue paper with shaking hands. The silver medal gleamed in the afternoon light. She looked up at Amy, unable to find words adequate to express what this meant. "You're going to be okay," Amy said firmly. "Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you're going to be okay. And when you doubt that, when it feels too hard, I want you to remember something. If you can survive this, the worst thing that can happen to a person, you can survive anything. You're stronger than you know." She turned to address the crowd of students still gathered around them. "All of you," she said, her voice carrying down the hallway. "Life is going to hurt you. It's going to break your heart in ways you can't imagine yet. But that's not a reason to shut down or give up. It's a reason to be kind to each other. It's a reason to create beauty. It's a reason to sing, even when your voice is breaking." Amy looked back at Sarah. Promise me something. Promise me you'll keep singing. Your mum would want that. Sarah nodded, clutching the medal. I promise. Amy smiled, that crooked, beautiful smile that had graced 1,000 magazine covers. Then she did something unexpected. She walked over to the music room door and opened it. Can I? She asked the music teacher, who nodded, speechless. Amy walked into the room, the same room where she'd taken lessons 20 years ago, and sat at the piano. Students crowded into the doorway and windows. She played the opening chords of Valerie, but slowed down, turned into something softer, sadder, more honest. And she sang it directly to Sarah, who stood at the front of the crowd, still holding the medal, still crying, but smiling now too. The impromptu concert lasted 15 minutes. Amy played songs from her albums, but also jazz standards she'd learned in this very room. She played Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and the symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. She played What Is This Thing Called Love, and dedicated it to everyone who's ever felt like love was impossible because loss made them too scared to try again. When she finished, the applause was thunderous. But Amy waved it away. This isn't about me, she said. This is about Sarah, and everyone like her. This is about remembering that we're all carrying something, and the least we can do is help each other carry it. She stood up from the piano and walked back to Sarah. I have to go now, she said. But I want your email. I'm going to check in on you. And if you ever need to talk about anything, you write to me. No management company, no intermediaries. You write directly to me. Sarah, overwhelmed, could only nod. Amy hugged her one more time. Your mum would be so proud of you, she whispered. I can tell. Then, as suddenly as she'd arrived, Amy Winehouse walked back down the hallway. Students parted to let her through, many reaching out to touch her arm or shoulder as she passed, whispering thank you, thank you, thank you. Teachers stood in their classroom doorways, visibly moved. The headmaster shook her hand at the top of the stairs, his eyes red, unable to speak. Amy paused at the top of the staircase and turned back. Remember, she called out to everyone watching. Be kind. Create beauty. Carry each other. That's all that matters. Then she was gone, down the stairs and out the front door, leaving behind a school transformed. The hallway remained silent for a long moment after she left, as if everyone was trying to hold on to the feeling of what had just happened. Then slowly, carefully, students began to move again, but they were different now. Softer with each other. More present. Sarah stood in the center of the hallway, clutching the Street Christopher medal, surrounded by friends and teachers offering support. The video of Amy singing would be uploaded within the hour, going viral within a day, eventually reaching millions of people. But for Sarah, the most important part was what couldn't be captured on video. The feeling of being seen, of being held in her grief, of being told that she could survive this. 3 years later, Sarah would perform at a memorial concert for Amy Winehouse, who had died too young, her own demons finally overwhelming her. Sarah would sing, "Love is a losing game," to a packed auditorium, wearing her mother's favorite dress and Amy's Street Christopher medal. She would tell the story of that day in the school hallway, her voice breaking but never stopping, and the audience would cry just as her classmates had cried. Because that's what Amy Winehouse had taught her. That vulnerability wasn't weakness. That breaking wasn't failing. That sometimes the strongest thing you could do was admit you were hurting and let someone help you carry the weight. The music room at Ashmole Academy now has a plaque on the wall. It reads, "In memory of Amy Winehouse, who taught us that music is medicine, kindness is courage, and we are never alone in our grief." Next to it is a photo from that day, showing Amy sitting on the hallway floor with Sarah, both of them crying, both of them smiling, both of them holding on to each other like lifelines. Students who attend the school now, who weren't there that day, still hear the story. It's passed down like a sacred text, this tale of the day a superstar showed up unannounced and reminded everyone what really mattered. When new students ask if it really happened, older students show them the videos, the photos, the plaque. They tell them about Sarah, who went on to become a music teacher herself, who starts every school year by telling her students about the day Amy Winehouse taught her that grief can be carried, that loss can be survived, that kindness can save lives. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope today. Subscribe to keep these stories alive. Because sometimes, the most powerful performances happen without a stage, without a microphone, with nothing but raw human connection. And that's exactly what Amy Winehouse gave the world that day.